everyone, welcome back. So today we're diving deep into avoidant attachment. And if it happens to you that someone called you emotionally unavailable, or if they told you that you have a fear of commitment, this one is for you. But even if you don't have an avoidant attachment yourself, this video can be useful to understand better some friends or familiar who's hard to get close to, or someone you date and seems really interested, but suddenly when you get closer, he pulls away. So today we'll see what avoidant attachment is, how it looks like, where it comes from, and how it shows up in relationships, and most importantly, how to work with it. Because we genuinely believe, as we always say, that we have the power to transform any pattern in our life, any aspect of our life. So you're not stuck as the avoidant person forever. But first, of course, you need to see what's happening to understand.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that it's very important to underline that if you recognize yourself in this video, please don't use it to beat yourself up or feel like you're broken. Always remember that, like any other type of attachment, also avoidant attachment is a survival strategy. It made perfect sense based on what you experienced growing up. Every pattern exists for a reason. And the fact that you are here willing to look at this, that takes courage. Because avoidant types often don't even realize they're avoidant. They just think everyone else is too needy or too emotional. So if you are here, you are already on the path to growth. Let's dive in.
Okay, so avoidant attachment is a pattern, as we said, where you highly value independence and self-sufficiency, often to the point where emotional intimacy feels threatening or suffocating. It's not that you don't want connection at all, you do, but there is this automatic defense mechanism that kicks in when people get too close, or like when things get too emotional, when someone starts to depending on you, for example, or wanting you to depend on them. Your nervous system reads that as danger, and your instinct is to create distance. It's not the same, obviously, for every person. Like with all the attachment styles, it exists on a spectrum. So you might be slightly avoidant or very strongly avoidant on some other situation. It depends. You might be avoidant, for example, in romantic relationships, but secure with friends, or vice versa. So where does this come from? Avoidant attachment typically develops when your caregivers were emotionally distant, dismissive, or sent you somehow the message that your feelings and needs were inconvenient or too much. It's not about that they were bad people, not at all, or they didn't love you, but they also did what they could, what they've learned from their experiences, what they have internalized as correct and as love. So maybe, for example, going back to how it creates, maybe when you cried as a child, you were told to be toughen up. Maybe when you were scared or upset, your parents or caregivers got uncomfortable or irritated instead of comforting you. Maybe they were physically present but emotionally unavailable, going through the motions of parenting but not really connecting with you emotionally. Or maybe they were overly focused on achievement and independence. So they were encouraging you, saying, you're strong, you can handle this on your own. We raised you to be independent, encouraging this type of behavior, which sounds positive, honestly, but what you actually learned was needing people is somehow weak. So relying on others is dangerous. And the safest thing is to depend only on yourself. So you adapted, you learned to shut down your emotional needs, to handle everything on your own, to not burden others with your feelings. And that worked. Of course, it kept you safe. It helped you survive an environment where vulnerability wasn't welcome. But now, as an adult, that same strategy is making it really hard to form deep, intimate connections.
Yeah. So let's talk about what avoidant attachment actually looks like in your day-to-day life and relationships. Because understanding the theory is one thing, but recognizing it on your own pattern is where real change begins. First, there's the independence thing. You probably pride yourself on being self-sufficient. You handle your problems alone, you don't really ask for help, and when people offers you support, it might feel uncomfortable or annoying. There's this voice in your head that says, I've got this, I don't need anyone. In relationships, you often need a lot of space. And it's not just physical space, it's emotional space too. When your partner wants to have deep conversations about feelings or the relationship, you might find yourself mentally checking out, changing the subject, or suddenly remembering something important you need to do. So it's not so easy for you to be in these moments, in these conversations. I want to think about something. When someone gets upset and wants to talk about it, is your first instinct to solve the problem logically? Tell them they're overreacting or just wish they would have handled it themselves? That's your avoidant attachment protecting you from emotional overwhelm. Because vulnerability, yours or someone else's, doesn't feel safe to you. It feels exposing, messy, uncomfortable.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. And I think another important point is to be really into the situation as long as things are casual and there is no pressure. But as soon as they want more commitment, as soon as, the relationship gets serious or to the next level, suddenly you start noticing all their flaws and feeling like you need a bit of space. So this is a classic avoidant attachment. You're actually most comfortable in relationships that have built-in distance, because then you get some connection without the threat of real intimacy. Conflicts are also another good point, because if you have an avoidant attachment style, you probably hate conflicts. Not the way anxious types hate them because they're like devastated by conflict. You're more likely to shut down, withdraw, or try logic way to try to logic your way out of the emotional component. For example, if someone is upset, you might say, well, that's not rational. Here are 5 reasons why you shouldn't feel that way, and you would try to logic it. But here's the thing, emotions aren't logical. And in a healthy relationship, both people need to be able to express their feelings and to be heard. And we truly believe that through authentic communication from the heart, you can resolve almost any problem. But that requires being, willing to stay present with emotions, yours and your partner's. And sometimes it feels uncomfortable, but still you need to be present with them. So you might also notice some patterns of deactivation. This is when you start mentally or emotionally distancing yourself from your partner. Maybe you focus on their flaws, convince yourself that, you're not that into them, fantasize about being single, or like feel relieved when plans get canceled. These are all ways, again, your nervous system, your learned patterns try to create that safety through distance.
Yeah, and here's something we see a lot. Avoidant types often end up in relationships with anxious types. And it makes sense, right? The anxious person is pursuing connection, trying to get close, which triggers your need for space. So you pull away. which triggers the fear of abandonment. So they pursue more. So you pull away more. Becomes that painful dance where both people are just triggering each other's wounds. And of course, we are not sharing this to make you feel bad. We are sharing this because every relationship is a mirror. Every time you feel that urge to run, every time someone's emotions feel like too much, every time you choose distance over connection, that's showing you exactly what needs healing inside you. Because the truth is, you can be free even in a relationship. True freedom isn't about being alone or keeping people at arm's length. It's about choosing to be with someone consciously, not out of obligation or fear. It's the difference between avoiding commitment because you're scared versus choosing commitment because it genuinely enriches your life. And let's talk about what we call the avoidant cycle. Because if you have avoidant attachment, this pattern is probably running on autopilot in your relationships. It usually starts with connection. Maybe you meet someone and there's chemistry. In the beginning, when things are light and fun and there's no pressure, you're all in. You might even be the one pursuing, sending sweet messages, planning dates. You genuinely feel excited about this person. But then something shifts. Maybe they tell you that they're falling in love for you. Maybe they want to have the talk about where this is going. Maybe they just start expecting regular communication or want to see you more often. Suddenly, that excitement just felt start to feel more like pressure or obligation. This is when the deactivation starts. Your nervous system starts sending alarm signals. This is getting too close. This is too much. You're losing your independence. And you start noticing this that bother you about them. They text too much, they're too emotional, they're not ambitious enough, or tiny things like they chew weird, for example. Then comes the distancing behavior. You might become less responsive to text. You might need more alone time or throw yourself into work. You might pick small fights that create space. You might start thinking about your ex or imagining what it will be like to be single again. Anything to create that breathing room your nervous system is craving. And here's what's tricky. Often you're not even fully aware you're doing this. It just feels like you're being honest about the relationship not being right, or you generally need space, or they really are being too clingy. You're not consciously sabotaging, you're unconsciously protecting yourselves.
Therefore. And then what happens? So sometimes the person gets the message and pulls back or leaves. Okay. And then, and this is I think the painful part, you start missing them again. So once the threat of intimacy is gone, once there is this distance, suddenly you remember all the good things about them. And, after a while, you might even reach out and restart the cycle. Or sometimes you stay in the relationship, but keep it at a surface level. So never really letting them all the way in, never being fully vulnerable, always keeping one foot in, one foot out of the door, which might feel safe to you, we understand, but it's not actually giving you the deep connection that all humans need and that you also want. Because we all need connection, and so you do need connection as well. You do need intimacy. And this is not weakness at all. That's human, and that's being human, Your avoidant attachment convinced you that you don't need that you don't need people, that you're fine on your own. But that's just a defense mechanism talking. So the parts of you that are hidden behind those walls, the parts that are scared, that want to be seen and accepted, that long for real connection, they're still there, and they deserve to be acknowledged and honored and not locked away. So if we want to be honest about how avoidant attachment can impact someone's life beyond just romantic relationships, we could say that a person that has avoidant attachment feels lonely. Sometimes you might not realize, but since you convince yourself that you prefer to be alone, you are fine with surface level connections. So, but there is a difference between solitude, which can be nourishing, and isolation, which is a defense mechanism. So when you keep everyone at a distance, when you never let people really see you, when you handle everything alone, that's a heavy burden to carry. There is something important to say here. When you're always in your head instead of feeling, and when you pride yourself on not needing anyone, you kind of lose touch with huge parts of who you are, because you become self-sufficient, but also like you are missing, deep inside, you are missing out on beautiful relationships as well, because you exit before things get deep, or you keep people at such a distance that they eventually give up, or you convince yourself you're not that into them right when things are getting real. You're missing out on what beautiful relationships are. So, well, it's something to think about.
Absolutely. And that goes against everything we believe about what's possible in a relationship. Because in a truly relationship, you feel safe, feel free to be yourself, all of yourself, including the parts that need comfort, that feel uncertain, that want connection. In healthy relationship, there are no games. There's honesty, there's transparency, there's communication from the heart. The whole people choosing to share their fullness with each other, not because they have to, but because they genuinely want to. You deserve that. You deserve someone with whom you can be vulnerable, who doesn't make that vulnerability feel like weakness. Someone who respects your need for independence while also creating a space where interdependence feels safe and beautiful. Yeah, so okay, we talked about what avoidant attachment is and how it shows up. Now let's talk about what you can actually do about it. Because you can absolutely develop more secure attachment. You have that power. First, you need to start recognizing your deactivation strategies. When you notice yourself pulling away, criticizing your partner, wanting space, feeling suffocated, pause. Ask yourself, is this a real incompatibility, or is this my nervous system trying to protect me from intimacy? That doesn't mean every time you want space, it's just your attachment issues. Sometimes you generally need alone time, and that's healthy. But if it's a pattern, if every relationship ends the same way, if you always find reasons to leave right when the things get serious, that's worth examining. Second, practice staying present with emotions, yours and other people's. When your partner is upset, resist the urge to fix it logically or dismiss it. Just sit with them. Let them feel what they're feeling. You don't have to solve it. You just have to be there. And when you have emotions, because you do, even if you're really good at suppressing them, practice identifying and expressing them. Start small. I'm feeling frustrated, for example. I'm actually nervous about this. That hurts my feelings. It will feel vulnerable and uncomfortable. I know, especially at first. But this is how you build emotional intimacy.
Yeah, beautiful. And here is something crucial. You need to challenge the belief that needing people is weak, or that depending on someone means losing yourself, because that's the core wound of avoidant attachment. The belief that to be safe, you must be completely self-sufficient. But here's the truth, like we're wired for connection. Humans are social beings. Interdependence isn't weakness. It's actually the foundation of healthy relationships. It means you're two whole people who choose to support each other, who trust each other trust each other enough to be vulnerable, who create something together that's more than the sum of its parts. The more you heal your inner child, the part of you that learned emotions weren't safe, that needing people meant getting hurt, the freer you become to actually experience real intimacy. And that's where the magic happens. It's important to express your emotions and let your partner know what you need with honest communication. So, for example, when things get too intense, feel too intense to you, just try to say something like, I need a bit of time to process before we continue this conversation. Can we take a little break? That's much healthier than just stonewalling or disappearing.
Yeah. And consider getting support if you feel it, like therapy, coaching, reading about attachment theory, and doing the inner work. Sometimes we need outside perspective to help us see our patterns clearly. And that's not a weakness, that's wisdom. You can absolutely develop more secure attachment. We've seen it happen, research backs it up, and we believe in your power to transform any aspect of your life. But it requires being willing to feel uncomfortable, to challenge your automatic responses, to practice staying when your instinct is to run. Every time you feel that urge to deactivate and you pause instead, every time you choose to be vulnerable, even though it's scary, every time you stay present with someone's emotion, even though you want to intellectualize them away, you're rewiring your nervous system. You're teaching yourself that intimacy can be safe. And the more you heal, the more you start to experience what real peaceful feels like. Not the peace of being alone and avoiding messiness, but the deep, solid, joyful security that comes from knowing you can be fully yourself with someone and they're not going anywhere. That you can need someone and it doesn't make you weak. That vulnerability is actually strength.
Absolutely. Okay, I think we gave quite a few points on this video, so I think we can call it a video, let's say, and we can say we want to really thank you so much for your time, for listening, and for your support. So drop a comment and let us know if it resonated, and what is your biggest insight that you got from this video. We read everything. We love hearing from you. We love building these connections. So again, thank you again for watching, and we'll see you in the next video. Ciao.
Ciao.